Hey there, everybody. This is Kristin from Teaching Balance, and I am here with you with this week's mindfulness meditation practice. We are in the month with the theme of letting go. And there's certainly lots that we can let go of that would be very beneficial to us. But in the interest of trying to drill down to some more specific things, I thought that this week I would explore the idea of letting go of, best way I can almost like sum it up succinctly is the coulda, woulda, shoulda experience, where when you reflect back, and of course at this time of the year, it is the final month of the school year for just about all of you. And I think sometimes beyond just general exhaustion, there can be a quality of, wishing you had done certain things differently, and I was about to say better, but wishing you had done things differently. And, there's obviously nothing wrong with reflecting and growing and evolving and all of that. That's informs, good practice as not only a professional, but just as a human being. And there's also a point where it really does benefit for us to just let it go. That one exchange that you had with a student that did not go well. Yes, it's not inevitable that you might have that student again, although perhaps not super likely. There's a point where you just have to let it go. And if you can remedy something and attend to it and correct it, and of course, perhaps you did and are still hanging on to it, which is its own tricky business, or if there is no way to resolve it, there's just a point where there is a lot of value from just letting it go and moving on. So that's really my theme that I'd like to introduce to you for this week to play around with. If you're the kind of person that likes to have something to reflect on, that might be the question that you ask yourself is what am I perhaps hanging on to when it comes to that coulda, shoulda, woulda feeling, and it might be time just to put it down, whether it's from this last year or certainly even farther back. Sometimes continuing to carry our burdens doesn't, help us in any way. And if anything, it just prevents us from being more skillful in the present. All right, so our practice today really isn't going to integrate that in any way. It's just going to be our typical 10-minute practice. But remembering that, of course, all of our meditation sessions help us to cultivate that self-awareness that allows us to notice when we slip into perhaps that mental feedback loop of, I coulda, I shoulda, I wish I had, that sort of thing. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm setting it for 10 minutes. I'm going to take a big stretch. I feel like my shoulders really need a little bit of a stretch, and that also helps me to roll them back and down, opening up my heart center. We always touch on a little bit of posture. One of the things that doesn't come up too much in most mainstream descriptions of seated posture is the idea of kind of your head and the tilt of your head. So in the interest of, in case you didn't know, the best way to describe it is that if you think of your spine going up into the back of your skull, you want to give it space so that it continues upward in a straight fashion. So if you're looking up too much, then you're tilting that spinal cord back. And if you're looking down too much, you're tilting it down. So I always like to be looking straight ahead and then dropping my chin just slightly to create a little bit more of space and extension of the spine. If you haven't already, taking a few of those long, slow, deep belly breaths. Filling up the lungs from the bottom of the lungs, and then finally the top. And then with the exhale, emptying the lungs from the top all the way to the bottom, squeezing out all of that stale air. And when you exhale with that thoroughness, it almost automatically has your inhale that follows to be a little bit deeper and longer, which is quite nice. Eyes closed or the gaze lowered. I'm going to give us a little silence here at the beginning, and I'll check back in, see how you're doing. Noticing where the mind is now. And if it's wandered off into thought, just bringing it back. If your mind is still present and resting on an anchor, continuing to do so. And if you find this session you're particularly having a hard time to settle, one very simple technique I've been playing with lately is in my mind, on every inhale, just saying to myself mentally in, and on every exhale, saying in my mind out. I find sometimes that just gives me a little more of something to rest my attention on that's rather concrete when I'm particularly agitated or feeling like I just can't quite settle the way I'd like to. So again, just saying in your mind in on the inhale and out on the exhale, but only if that's something that you're interested in, of course. Just checking in where the mind is, the final minute or so. Knowing that we're almost at the end. If you care to, you can even do a mini reset. Move the body around. And then settle in once more for that final few moments before the bell. That's our 10 minutes. And of course, your invitation, just to reiterate, is to reflect on if there are any woulda, coulda, shouldas, regrets, if you will, that you are hanging on to, that it is time to consider letting go of, and to play with what that might feel like. And again, it doesn't mean that the regret ceases to exist. It doesn't mean that you're somehow, not acknowledging what occurred. Instead, it's just more about knowing that it's not really doing any good to keep dragging this along with you in your life. So there's just a point where it just makes the most sense to let go and allow yourself to move on slightly more unencumbered. So as always, thank you so much for taking this time for yourself, and thank you for allowing me to accompany you on this journey. And I will see you next week. Take care. Bye.